Welcome back to the Map for College learning community. My name is Ernest Manelli, founder of My Action Plan for College, and this video is going to discuss certain specific distinctions between the SAT and the ACT, two standardized tests that are considered to be the most widely accepted standardized tests among North American colleges and universities, and that also have reciprocity with universities in other parts of the world, depending on the college or university. Now, the first thing that we often discuss with students and families would be the fundamental consideration of whether or not it is in the student's best interests to take a standardized test and to pursue the pathway of test preparation. Many people just assume it's a right of course, but in recent years, even pre-2020, there was a movement that has since accelerated of an increasing number of colleges and universities that have gone test optional. That number has only increased, and in many cases, certain colleges have made a multi-year commitment to going test optional. So the first thing I want you to consider as a student is, would taking a standardized test put me in a value-added position? Would it give me positive leverage? Would it give the admission staff another piece of information by which they could accurately assess and make a positive judgment, a fair judgment, on my admissions credentials? Now, you don't have to decide that early on in high school, but at some point in the 10th, 11th grade cycle, you would definitely want to come to that determination after thoughtful discussion with your guidance counselor, with teachers, with your family, just introspection with yourself as a student. And we also offer the opportunity to consult on an individual family basis regarding whether or not a test-taking approach might be right for you as a student in terms of your long-term, long-range plans. Now, that being said, for those students that do choose to take standardized tests, there are a couple main options, the SAT and the ACT. Now, the benefits of the SAT is a very popular test, especially in the northeastern United States. It's offered throughout the country, but in the Northeast, it tends to have a little bit more market share proportionally. So the SAT offers a little bit more favorable timeline. For example, between the two mathematics sections, there are 80 minutes offered between Section 3, no calculator, which is strategy-oriented, mathematical principles-oriented. You have 25 minutes for Section 3, 55 minutes for Section 4. That's a total of 80 minutes between the two math sections. And you only have 58 questions. Now, I mention only because you have 80 minutes for just shy of 60 questions. Comparing that to the ACT has 60 math questions in 60 minutes. So as you can see, there's a little bit more of a pacing dynamic on the ACT. But getting back to the SAT does offer two distinct math sections. Within each math section, approximately 3/4 of the questions are going to be multiple choice, and approximately 1/4 of the questions, thereabouts, will be open response. So if you are very strong with open response questions that do not have multiple choice elements to them, in which you have to show your work, demonstrate each step of the mathematical process, if you really thrive in that environment, mathematically and cognitively, then you may want to give the SAT math a shot and see if it would be of interest to you, because that may play to your skills. Now, correspondingly on the SAT, there is also a writing section, which effectively is a grammar and language and quality of writing section. You are offered different passages with multiple choice questions along the way that feature things such as subject-verb agreement, parallel structure, proper use of infinitives, prepositions, articles, punctuation rules. So along the way, you're sort of asked to determine the fitness, the relative fitness in terms of quality of writing and English standard conventions of, certain questions that you get along the way. So basically, you're almost having the mindset of an editor, and you're trying to edit a piece of writing based on grammatical principles and also quality of writing in terms of presenting something that's efficacious to the reader. So, and another section that is offered on the SAT would be reading comprehension, in which you have passages followed by comprehension questions. And those passages could be fiction or nonfiction. And so, in the broad scheme of things, the SAT is a little bit more deliberate, a little bit more methodical test, especially on the mathematics pacing. The mathematics pacing is a little bit more agreeable. There tends to be a little bit more of a combination of question categories, because on the mathematics you do have multiple choice and you do have open response. So that's something that you should know. Now, for the ACT is a very popular test, especially in the Southeast, the Sunbelt states, and certain parts of the West Coast, the Midwest. In fact, the ACT for many years has had a slightly larger market share of the United States test takers than the SAT. The SAT tends to be a little bit more regional over time, and more people over time in different districts have gravitated toward the ACT, but they're both excellent tests. Now, the ACT moves at a quicker pace, but you also get some concessions. So, for example, if you are someone who is going to top out at pre-calculus in 12th grade, I took pre-calc in 12th grade. I was focused mostly on advanced placement coursework in my other subjects, and I was a good math student, but I had to be very diligent about it. So I was on the pre-calc track, and I was okay with that, because in the overall spectrum of things, that provided balance. If you are going to top off at pre-calculus and not get into the calculus realm, you may want to stick with SAT math, because the ACT math gets into a little bit of some beginning principles and curriculum-based points of calculus. So things like logarithms and other points of learning you would have to deal with on the ACT that you wouldn't necessarily have to deal with on the SAT. Now, the ACT does move at a quicker pace. Most of the sections are comparable to, if not slightly faster paced, than the SAT. But the streamlined nature of the questions and the fact that they're all multiple choice and that there's no open response in mathematics, that serves to counterbalance some of the pacing elements. Another feature of the ACT that's very important to describe would be that the ACT has a science section. Now, you don't necessarily have to have the greatest background knowledge in science to succeed on the science section, because in actuality, the science section of the ACT plays out more like a reading comprehension section. So if you are strong with informational text, reading charts, tables, graphs, quick bursts of information, if you can maintain a high level of accuracy and recall through note-taking and through association between questions and answers, then you may very well perform quite successfully on the ACT science section. So if you would like to discuss any of these points of reference between the SAT or the ACT as you make your own determinations, please feel free to contact us. Again, my name is Ernest Manelli, founder of My Action Plan for College. You can reach me at ernest@mapforcollege.com. Feel free to like, subscribe to this video, and subscribe to our channel. And we hope you have a fabulous day. Thank you for listening.